Hello friends, welcome to the Cold War Prepper. My name is Lee, and today I want to talk about intellectual integrity and intellectual honesty on YouTube. And talk about what are we doing? Why are we here? What do we want to accomplish? And then discern those people and shun those who are doing it for poor reasons and embrace those who are doing it for the right reasons. So let me start off with first a quote by Abraham Lincoln, and I think it's very appropriate to what we're going to be talking about here with intellectual integrity, and that is, you can fool all of the people some of the time, and you can fool some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. So, then we have Joe Harry's window, and that says, there are things I know that I know, there are things I know that I don't know, there are things I don't know that I know, and there are things that I don't know that I don't know. And, people quite often will do what I call the Edith Ann on Rowan and Martin's approach. So at 9 o'clock on Thursday nights on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, NBC, back in the late 60s, Lily Tomlin played a character called Edith Ann. And she sat in this humongous rocking chair, and she came out with some of the greatest philosophical statements I've ever heard. And one of them was, I've never told a lie in my life, but I do know how to create the truth. And beware, there are people out there on YouTube who are creating the truth. Let me tell you what happens is, that Abraham Lincoln statement. When I had my emergency services trailer and I was working with FEMA, you had a special identification card. You could come up and we'd give you your meal for free. But we also had a cash price. So this guy came up, he was going to pay cash. He says, do you offer a military discount? And I said, oh, you bet. And I said, so tell me about your military service. He says, well, I was a Navy SEAL. I said, oh, that's great. So what was your rating? He says, can't tell you, that's classified. I said, okay, well, what was your rank? He says, oh, I was a first lieutenant. I said, okay, and how are you commissioned? He says, well, I can't tell you that, that's classified also. And so I looked at him, I said, buddy, you're pounding sand up my skirt because, number one, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, and the Army have first lieutenants. The Navy doesn't. In the Navy, you have a lieutenant, or you have an ensign, would be the equivalent to a second lieutenant in the other services. You have a lieutenant junior grade, which is the equivalent to a first lieutenant in the other services. You have a lieutenant who's equivalent to a captain in the other services, and then you have a lieutenant commander who's the equivalent to a major in the other services. So number one, you're blowing sand up my skirt with the rank thing. Number two, there's nothing classified about how you were commissioned. I was commissioned military intelligence. I mean, you can't get anything that you'd want to be more classified than that, but I can openly state that, and so, you run in every once in a while, you run into somebody who knows what they're talking about, and your BS gets called. They just lay their cards on the table and say, hey, buddy, give it up. Know what you're talking about. And so, that happens infrequently here. There are some things that I do know a little bit about. There are some things I know a lot about. I am not an expert in all things. I'll give you some good examples in that. But first, I want to say I have never, ever deleted a comment on my channel. Okay, and I've had two really obtuse people make comments. One of them is very prolific in making obtuse comments across YouTube, and a lot of us creators have discussed him. And but there's possibility of some need for some attention by a skilled professional for that person. Then there was another person, and he basically helped me get started in YouTube. And I was on one of his lives, and this woman, or first, this guy said something negative about Masons, and so I put in a little quip, and I said, got your prejudice hat on today. And so he stopped, okay? Then this woman came on, and she started saying all these things about Freemasons. Well, let me tell you, I was Catholic, and then in 1971, I married my first wife, began seminary to become a Baptist minister, left the Catholic Church, became a Freemason, worked my way up to 32nd degree, became a Scottish writer, and then we got divorced. Then I waited 8 years, got married again. My second wife is Methodist, and as things worked on, I kept on, I had this thing in as I studied more and more, reading my Bible with the Baptist seminary and everything else earlier on, I started having some questions. And then I just started researching those. And I said, you know what? Everything that I was taught in the Baptist church about Catholics is not what I was taught when I was a Catholic. And so I started doing a study between the two and decided, well, I'll go back to Catholicism. So this woman started saying these things about Freemasonry. She had no idea what she was talking about. But she had encountered somebody who knows what he's talking about. And, it's also, whenever you have a society or an organization, it's difficult to defend yourself because there are certain things you can and cannot say, except what you're saying, the accusations that you're saying are patently false. Other than that, it's difficult, or else you betray oaths that you have taken. So the person got on my channel and said, well, your argument with the guy is, you were totally out of whack and everything else. And I left that up on my channel. You can go back and research it. I had no argument with the guy. The guy and I had that resolved after the very first interchange, where I just simply said, got your prejudice hat on today. It was with the woman who claimed to know everything about Freemasonry. Okay. Now, so I also have very little tolerance for other people who claim to know a lot about Catholicism and make comments about Catholicism with no knowledge whatsoever. So if you want to challenge me on that, I can give you scripture and verse. We can go at it head to head, and I can show you in the Bible, especially Matthew 16, where Jesus said to Cephas, or Peter, "You are the rock upon which I will form my church," and then it goes from there. So I can show you, I can prove to you, I have documentation. Then the third one, so where's my hat? Oh gosh, I left my hat because I wear it all the time. It's with my keys at the front front table where I come in. Got my keys, my sunglasses, and what else do I keep with it? Anyhow, I take off 3 things, put them inside my hat, put it at the front door. Take a look at it up on top, and it's right here on my avatar. It says Army Security Agency. So what happens when you put the Army Security Agency, the Naval Security Group, and the Air Force Security Service all in the same building? It's called the National Security Agency. I worked for the National Security Agency for 21 years. People tell me all kinds of things about the National Security Agency. And of course, because of U.S. Code, as well as United States Signals Intelligence Directives, I cannot respond other than say, you're full of poo-poo. But, people come into people and they just don't realize it. You're going to encounter somebody who knows what they're talking about every once in a while, and the best thing to do is back off. Now, there are some things I don't know, okay? I was in the Army for 21 years. I know the M16. I know the M1911. I know the M203. I know those extremely well. Are they better than anything else? I don't know. I haven't tried anything else. Okay, I was watching another guy that I really, really like, and we were talking, and there was a discussion on his live, and about the M17, M18 Sig Sauer, the P320, and how he doesn't see how anybody in their right mind would have a Sig Sauer over a Glock, and that's what Special Forces uses. Therefore, that is the best handgun in the world. I've never shot anybody. I've never handled a P320. I've never handled a Glock. I don't know. I have to take other people at their word. But I will tell you, where I go for information on what is probably the best is a guy by the name of Stephen C. Smith. And his channel is Integrative Preparedness. He used to be an undercover police officer. He used to be a police officer. He carried a firearm. He shot people. He knows the size of the hole. And so if I want to know what should I carry, I'm going to ask him, because I know he knows what he's talking about. Then one of the other channels I really, this was funny. The way he and I met was about 8-9 years ago on Facebook. And we were talking to a goat herder from North Carolina who was telling us how things are in foreign countries, and that silver and gold and everything else, would not be valuable in foreign countries. And this guy's name is J.J. Johnson, and his channel is Reality Survival. He researches his stuff before he says anything. He knows what he's talking about. He has a long length of service in the Air Force as a SEER, survival, escape, resistance, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape instructor. And I mean, he knows survivalism. He knows it better than most other people. If I have a question, I'm going to ask JJ. JJ will research it and get me the right answer. Another one I really like New York Prepper, Greg. Greg researches his stuff like you would not believe before he makes a video on it and makes a proclamation. I trust those guys. JJ Johnson, Greg from New York Prepper. Stephen C. Smith from Integrated Preparedness. And there are a couple others, and I'll try to get those included in these as I go along. There are people who just inspire me. Prepping by Faith just inspires me. Such a positive person. And I think that's what we should be doing on YouTube, is giving people hope, giving people practical ways of doing things. It used to be apartment prepper. Now it's navigating the nonsense. Diane, let me tell you, there's nobody more down that has a more pure heart, wants to take care of things and do things right than she does. I love her channel. Prepper Dog is where I go to get a lot of my news information because he researches. I trust him. He has not yet proven me, there's nothing that he's given me that I can find wrong. You know who I really, really admire is a lady by the name, she used to go by Van City Prepper. Now she's changed her name to Alpine Preparedness. She has a PhD in geology. So when I want to know information about the Earth and the crust and Yellowstone and the Long Valley super volcano and the Mauna Loa going off and all this other kinds of stuff, that's who I ask. She's got a PhD in it. I know who to ask. When I want to talk to people about radioactivity, for example, besides the fact that I'm a U.S. military certified NBC NCO, so it's changed names since I did it. When I did it, it was called Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical, NBC. Now it's called CBRN, Chemical, Radiological, Biological, and Nuclear, NCO. But we had, courses we went to on the effects of nuclear bombs and how it comes down, and radiation and everything else, and purification of water. We basically had to memorize FM 3.3-11 and FM 3-11.5, and so there are those things that you're going to encounter where you run into people who know what they're talking about, and so you just can't fool all of the people all of the time. So I would. And I would also add, when a person tells you, I'm going to quote this book, and then they make a quote, and they don't give you the reference, if I tell you something scientific, I'm going to give you a link to the reference that is scientifically proving what I am saying. Recently, I had a tete-a-tete with an individual, and he said, "This book says," okay? And then he said, "This book says that don't be suspicious of any groundwater." Well, I've read from, let me get here, so chapter 8. Now, this is the old book. I've read from chapter 8, all of chapter 8, and cannot find that. What I can find is sources of water in fallout areas, and so these are the 7 areas of water: water from deep water wells, water from covered sewage or seepage pits, and contaminated water from deep lakes, contaminated water from shallow ponds, and other shallow still water, contaminated water from streams, which is number 5, water collected from fallout contaminated roofs, number 6, and water obtained by melting snow that has fallen through air conditioning fallout particles. So the very book that was quoted, it says, and I wish I could, I'm going to put it up here so you can pause it and read that chapter right there, so that I'm not going to misquote. I've put the actual paragraph up there for you to pause and read. It says, well, let me put the bottom one down there too, because there's 2, and so I want to put this one there as well and give you a chance to read that. And so it says, the dangers from drinking fallout contaminated water could be greatly lessened by using expedient settling and filtration methods to remove fallout particles and most of the dissolved radioactive material. Fortunately, in areas of heavy fallout, less than 2% of the radioactivity of the fallout particles contained in the water would become dissolved in water. In nearly all, the radioactive fallout particles can be removed by filtering or settling methods, and few casualties would be likely to result from drinking or cooking with most fallout contaminated water. I strongly recommend. New York Prepper did a series on nuclear contamination and how to survive it. Great series, factual. I advocate it. I support it. Scientifically researched. Believe him. J.J. Johnson has a lot of great information. Believe him. I think that when it comes to weapons and ammunition, I'm going to take the word of Stephen C. Smith. Now, when it comes to rifles, that's not his thing. He's a handgun guy, okay? When it comes to rifles, all I have is my hunting experience and my M16A1 issued rifle that I have to go by. Of course, for a short while, I had a 12-gauge shotgun, Remington 870. I can talk a little bit about that, but, gosh, we're talking 50 years ago. But anyhow, so I try not to talk in areas that I'm not an expert. But if you challenge me and call me out, and I know the facts and I can prove them, I do. So on Sunday, hopefully by then I'll learn how to edit so that I can take pictures of all these different things I'm going to share with you. So on Sunday, I will provide you some of this. I will give you a little bit of this. I will give you a little bit of this. I will give you a little bit of this. And I will show you where it says what I will be saying. And I will give all the references, page numbers, bibliography down in the notes below. And I will also give links where you can acquire the very same books, with the exception of this one. Okay. And I did this on my Christmas gift giveaway thing. This is published by the American Civil Defense Association. And so you have to become a member. That's tacta.org. And then you can become a member for free and have access to all of their wonderful scientific studies. In order to get the journal, you have to subscribe to it. So that is a cost. But I'll look forward to something probably Sunday once I learn how to edit and I can take pictures of the paragraphs I'll be reading and everything else to show you. You can't fool all of the people all the time. So remember, we're all in this. Let me go back. There are 2 types of people on YouTube. Seek out those who are here to help you get through to the other side, not to impress you with their knowledge. Okay? Number 2, when you find somebody who's pounding sand up your skirt, shun them. Okay? Remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. Take care. Bye-bye.